What is up, guys? This is Alex from Double Move Sports, and I'm going to break down this Thursday night AFC North showdown, if we want to call it a showdown, between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go through both sides of the ball, which players you should be starting, which players you should be sitting, heading into Week 2. But before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and make my pick for the game. I have the Cleveland Browns to win this one. The game is in Cleveland, so, not as much of a home field advantage this year, given some of the fan restrictions and things like that. But I expect Baker, Odell, Nick Chubb in this offense to get back on track against the rookie quarterback and weak defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. But let's go ahead and start on the Bengals side of the ball. From a fantasy football perspective, if you are in a one quarterback league, you're not starting Joe Burrow this week. If you're in a two quarterback league, you might be forced to. I probably would rather stream other options this week. Think of like the Daniel Jones type guy, even maybe not Tyrod Taylor, but Phillip Rivers against the Vikings, Kirk Cousins in that same game against the Colts, even Jared Goff this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. I would be willing to stream over someone like Joe Burrow. You're probably not feeling quite confident enough yet to plug him into your lineup, so I'm going to pass there. Heading into the running back position, though, for Cincinnati, I know Joe Mixon had a tough game last week. 19 carries for 69 yards and a fumble that he lost. The Chargers defense is really tough, so I wouldn't necessarily assume that the efficiency is not going to be there this week for Joe Mixon against the Cleveland Browns. I expect him to get back on track. I loved seeing him get 19 carries in that game in Week 1. My expectation is to protect Joe Burrow. They're going to actually run the ball a lot. So expect Joe Mixon to see similar volume in this one and have a much better day. And through the air, you only saw one reception for 2 yards. Expect that to go up. Burrow should check it down a couple more times to Joe Mixon. So if he burned you in Week 1, don't be too worried yet. Put him out there here in Week 2. Now, pass catchers for Cincinnati, things get really interesting, because we wonder how much work these guys are going to get with Joe Burrow as a rookie quarterback. Burrow threw it 36 times in Week 1, 23 of 36, 193 yards, 0 touchdowns and an interception. So if he can have 36 attempts a week, that's going to be great for his rookie season and these pass catchers. A.J. Green, 5 catches for 51 yards on 9 targets in Week 1. If I have A.J. Green, I'm willing to flex him here in Week 2. He's still healthy. He looked good out there in Week 1. On those 9 targets, he was only able to catch 5 of them. I look for him to get back on track in a better matchup against the Browns this week. Now, going on down the list, I'm still willing to flex Tyler Boyd. I know it was a tough outing, 4 receptions for 33 yards on only 5 targets. I'm willing to flex Tyler Boyd. There's plenty of other options I would rather go with this week in the flex. But if you're in a pinch and he's your flex guy, I wouldn't bench him just yet. I wouldn't be starting, these deep names off the waiver wire for him. But definitely is a guy who I'm on the fence about. And if I have to start Tyler Boyd, I'm not too upset about it. And I think he will get back on track this week. Outside of that, you're obviously not starting Giovanni Bernard at the running back position. You're not starting CJ Uzomah at the tight end spot. And unless you're in an incredibly deep league, you're avoiding John Ross, who only had 2 catches for 17 yards on 5 targets last week. If John Ross is going to be fantasy relevant, it's going to be almost impossible to predict. He's going to have some breakaway touchdowns this season, I'm sure. But trying to pick those games is going to be like throwing darts blindfolded. So I'm staying away from John Ross this week. Now, over to the Browns side of the football, things get a little bit more interesting. The Bengals defense isn't necessarily good. The Chargers, I know they obviously just held the Chargers to 16 points last week, but I'm not really wanting to start Baker Mayfield this week. But, if you're comparing him versus Joe Burrow this week, who do I think is going to have a better game? It's probably closer than you would think. I'm trying to avoid both, obviously, in 1 quarterback leagues. In a 2 quarterback league, still trying to avoid Baker, but if I had to, I'll roll him out there. It's going to be tough to find a bunch of other options on the waiver wire or on your bench in a 2 quarterback league. So if you have Baker, I think you still have to roll him out there. But in a 1 quarterback league, you're avoiding both guys in this game. Now, on the other sides of the Browns offense, you've got the running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I know Nick Chubb burned a lot of people last week. Tough week. That was Kareem Hunt's stat line I was reading. Nick Chubb only 10 carries for 60 yards. They didn't even use him in this game. I know he got game scripted out a bit with them falling behind early. Only 1 catch for 6 yards as well. He also lost a fumble. But if you drafted Nick Chubb, You're rolling him out this week against a fairly soft Bengals run defense. Roll him out with confidence. Don't overthink it and put him on your bench. Play Nick Chubb. We want to see a couple weeks from these guys before we start to panic. And then KAREEM Hunt. I mean, if you drafted KAREEM Hunt, you're probably pretty pleased. Out-carried Nick Chubb last week, 13-10. Hunt had 13 carries for 72 yards. I wish it was 30 carries. And then through the air, he saw 4 catches for 9 yards on 6 targets. I do expect the Browns to lead in this one, so I don't know what that split's going to look like, but this really does look like a timeshare in Cleveland in the backfield. I would be much happier if I drafted KAREEM Hunt in the 6th round than Nick Chubb in the 2nd. So you're starting both of those guys with confidence here in week 2. At the receiver spot, the 2 big questions for Cleveland are Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is questionable for this game, so keep an eye on it throughout the day. See if he's going to be active. If Jarvis Landry is active, I'm willing to play him in the flex if you're out of other options. Now, if you're looking at a guy like Tyler Boyd or Jarvis Landry in this game, I'm actually going to go with Tyler Boyd. I think they're going to be trailing. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more, and he doesn't have the injury risk that Landry carries. So if Landry's active, I'm willing to flex him, but there's other options that I would rather have. Odell Beckham, you've got to start him. 10 targets last week, only 3 catches for 22 yards. There were some inaccuracies there by Baker Mayfield. I expect them to get back on track. Really tough matchup in week 1 against Baltimore. You're not wanting to bench Odell Beckham yet. Let's see what he does here in the next couple weeks if the volume is still there before we overthink that decision. And then at the tight end spot, Austin Hooper. I mean, David Njoku's on IR, so you're obviously not going to start him. And Austin Hooper only 2 for 15 last week on 2 targets. And what should have been a positive game script for these guys, Baker threw it 39 times. I don't want to start Austin Hooper this week. If you have to, I mean, there's probably not many better options on the waiver wire. Maybe like if there's a Jonnu Smith out there, TJ Hawkinson, even Jack Doyle, if he ends up being healthy, I'd rather play this week than Austin Hooper. I want to see it from Austin Hooper before I believe it. So I'm trying to avoid Hooper. I'm going to sit him this week until he shows me what he is going to do in Cleveland. So that wraps up both sides of the ball in this game. So let's just recap here really quickly. On the Bengals side of the ball, you are starting Joe Mixon, A.J. Green, and Tyler Boyd. You're sitting Joe Burrow, C.J. Uzomah, Giovanni Bernard, and John Ross. On the Brown side of the ball, you're starting Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and I'm willing to start Jarvis Landry if you don't have other options. And I'm sitting Baker Mayfield and Austin Hooper, and obviously David Njoku as well. So that wraps up this game. Again, I'm picking the Browns in this one. I'll throw out a score of, I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring than the Bengals' first game. I think this one will be 27-21 Cleveland on Thursday Night Football, picking up their first win of the season. So again, guys, this is Alex from Double Move Sports. Drop your start-sit questions, trade questions, anything you've got in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.